You switched from sugar to artificial sweeteners thinking you were simply cutting calories. But here's the strange part. Your tongue tastes sweetness, while your brain is trying to figure out where the energy is. Your brain doesn't just detect taste, it predicts what should happen next. So when intense sweetness arrives without the expected calories, what does your brain actually do? Does it reduce cravings, keep them alive, or change the way you respond to sweet foods? The answer is more surprising than you might think. The moment artificial sweetener hits your tongue, your brain hears one clear message: sweet. Your taste receptors instantly send that signal to the brain, triggering the same expectation you might get from a sugary food. But here's the twist. Your brain may expect energy to follow, while the sweetener provides little or no calories. So your brain is left processing a strange mismatch: sweetness without the usual energy. And this is where things get interesting. Because your brain doesn't just taste food, it predicts what comes next. Sweetness can do more than satisfy your taste buds. It can grab your brain's attention. When you taste something sweet, brain circuits involved in reward and motivation can become active, making the experience feel enjoyable. Artificial sweeteners can trigger that sweet taste with little or no calories. But this doesn't mean they automatically trick or damage your brain. The response depends on the sweetener, the person, and the situation. Your brain is constantly comparing what you taste with what it expects next. And that expectation is where things get really interesting. Imagine your brain hearing sweet, but your body not receiving the expected calories. That's the unusual part of artificial sweeteners. Your taste receptors detect sweetness, while the energy coming from the food can be very different from what the brain might normally associate with that taste. But don't jump to the conclusion that this automatically causes overeating. Scientists have found mixed results, and the response can depend on the sweetener, the person, and the overall diet. The real question is, what happens when your brain repeatedly experiences sweetness without much energy? You finish a zero-sugar drink and feel satisfied, but an hour later, you're suddenly thinking about something sweet again. Did the sweetener cause the craving? Not so fast. Cravings are influenced by habits, taste, expectations, and your overall eating pattern. Artificial sweeteners don't automatically make everyone crave more food. In fact, for some people, replacing sugary drinks with low-calorie options can reduce sugar intake. But if your diet constantly trains your brain to expect intense sweetness, that preference may stick around. And that's where things get interesting. But your brain isn't working alone. Deep inside your body, your gut is constantly communicating with your brain through nerves, hormones, and chemical signals. This raises another fascinating question. Could artificial sweeteners influence this conversation? Scientists are studying whether certain sweeteners can affect the gut microbiome, the huge community of microorganisms living in your digestive system. Some studies suggest possible changes, but the results aren't consistent enough to say that artificial sweeteners harm everyone's gut or brain. So the real story isn't a simple good or bad, it's a much more complicated conversation between taste, gut, and brain. So, are artificial sweeteners secretly controlling your brain? Not exactly. The reality is far more interesting. Research shows that sweeteners can activate sweet taste and reward pathways, but that doesn't mean they automatically cause cravings, overeating, or brain damage. Some studies suggest they may help people reduce sugar and calorie intake, while other research raises questions about long-term effects. The response can vary from person to person. So instead of asking, are artificial sweeteners good or bad, the better question is, how does your brain respond to them over time? Artificial sweeteners may taste like sugar, but your brain doesn't experience the story quite so simply. Your taste receptors detect sweetness, reward systems respond to that experience, and your brain constantly compares what you taste with what it expects. But there's no solid evidence that artificial sweeteners simply hack or damage your brain. Their effects can depend on the sweetener, amount, habits, and individual response. So the next time you choose a zero-sugar drink, remember, you're not just changing the calories, you're changing the signals your brain receives from sweetness.